right, man. How you been since the
Oh,
last
I'm
time I
good,
saw you?
man. Yeah. It's the massage, man. I'm actually looking to get somebody else. I was gonna hit you up to see because I remember you said your sister does it too, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need
I do
anything, let
definitely
me
need
know,
another one. Yeah, no, I definitely need another one, man. I've been super sore lately too, so I'm like, all right, I think I gotta go get another massage, get loosened up again, because man, I've been tight lately too, so I can feel it.
Yeah, man. I mean, anybody that's trying to do more than like two physical activities back to back, your body takes a beating, bro. Trust me, I know. B-boying and lifting, because you have to do so much maintenance on your body, you almost don't even know when your body's okay anymore. You're always just hurting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, because sometimes, man, I tell them, man, I'd be feeling stiff. I'm like, man, why the hell am I so stiff? I'm like, oh, dude, I haven't danced in like a week. I'm like, damn, that's why I feel super stiff right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I always tell everybody like with the breaking several, it helps me feel limber, because especially when I'm not breaking, I don't feel like loose. With the fighting, I feel good. I feel athletic, but I was like, man, with the dancing stuff, I feel more loose and limber. And sometimes it's awkward because it's like, damn, like my back will feel hella loose after I'm dancing. I'm like, damn, like, oh, that's right. I was freaking flexible. So I gotta make sure I keep this up too.
Yep. No, it's funny that you say that because so right now I think I'm more, I guess you and me were kind of in reverse in terms of like dance and then Muay Thai. For me, I'm more, I guess, a little bit deeper into the lifting scene a little bit, but I
Mhm.
dabble with hip hop and dancing a little bit on the side, kind of like the way that you're getting into Muay Thai. But because
Okay.
where I'm at in my life right now, I'm actually wanting to get better at b-boying. Like it's kind of funny. Like now that I'm older, I want to get better, and as I get better at b-boying, it helps me with my lifting. Because
Yeah.
you need to be
I mean,
flexible to dance, right?
yeah, I mean, I tell everybody once you really break down the gist of breaking, right? It's just calisthenics.
Yep.
It literally is just calisthenics. It's just super calisthenics. You gotta balance, basic physical strength, flexibility, and stuff like that. So when I really look at it, right, I tell everybody, I was like, I mean, technically it's a workout. You just literally gotta like be able to lift. You don't even gotta be super strong. You just gotta be able to lift yourself, understand the balance of how your body works, and pretty much that's about it. And it's just calisthenics from there. That's why I tell everybody, I mean, like I always tell Tom, right? I was like, man, if you're gonna break, dude, this is what you gotta do. All you gotta do is do push-ups, sit-ups, some pull-ups, go run a little bit. I was like, and squats, and you should be fine, bro. You don't really need to lift crazy. I mean, it's gonna help if you work out and lift weights and stuff like that. I was like, but pretty much it's just basic maintenance that you really need because when you're breaking, you're already doing all those type of things. You're already lifting yourself. You're already throwing yourself through the air. Handstands. Like I tell everybody, handstands is super hard if you don't know how to do it. You
Yep.
know, so when we're holding the cricket freezes and stuff like that, I tell everybody it's an awkward position and it's like the balance is a little bit weird if you don't know how to do it. So I was like, it's pretty much calisthenics, understanding like your body's balance, understanding your physical strength and your limits and your flexibility and stuff like that. So, like I said, at the end of the day, man, breaking is just calisthenics.
Yeah, so I guess to piggyback off of that, that's kind of actually where I wanted to start. I now again, in case as we're continuing this conversation, in case people didn't know, right? Your name is Ryan Lee, b-boy,
Yeah,
Muay Thai, getting into almost the peak of maybe your athletic career. Would you say right now?
yeah, yeah. No, it's crazy because I always talk to a lot of my friends about it, right? I was like, I think when I was in the my early 20s, right? Because I'm 30 now. But when I was in like my early 20s, right? Like, I just started working out, right? Didn't know too much about physical health. And I was a heavy set guy. I've always kind of been a heavy set guy my entire life. So it was like very difficult because, when you first start, if you don't know nobody that's in the scene, if you don't know anything about it, you're just kind of going to go. You just go because you only know, okay, well, I'm gonna do some bicep curls because I want big arms. It's
Yeah.
just very basic stuff. Like especially guys, like we're not thinking about when you first go, we're not thinking about all right, squats for your legs and stuff like that. We're like, no, we're just gonna do chest and arms.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I'm gonna
Flexing
focus on. You know
muscles,
what I'm saying? Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, so I told that's all you focus on in the beginning, when you're first starting and as the journey progressed, right? Because in the beginning, I told him I didn't even really focus on cardio, right? I was just like lifting weights. Oh, if I could lift heavy, then I must be hecka strong, didn't really think about anything, no form, no technique, right? So a couple of years, and I tell everybody now, like, as I've stayed in the fitness scene a little bit more, I start to understand my body a little bit more. I start to understand what diets work for me, understand what feels good on my body. It helps a lot more. And I tell everybody, man, I'm 30 now, but I feel a lot better and way younger than I was when I was in my 20s, because it's like now I understand how to properly do my nutrition, how to properly like lift weights, understand that I don't got to kill myself every day. It's a progress. It's, like it's an everyday thing. So if you're killing yourself one day, you can't show up the next day because you're going to be too sore to do anything. Of course you want to be sore. You want to feel all that, but you don't want to push it to the extent where you can't come back the next day. You still got to be able to train every day. It's a daily thing.
Yep. It kind of sucks when you're injured and you're trying to go do some Muay Thai and then you get banged up by your boys too, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
really kind of puts it into perspective that, like you said, you really have to understand your body. And I guess I want to follow up saying, did you learn how to do that or kind of like maneuver through some of these things with b-boying? Or was it like as you leveled up in the fitness journey that you started learning some of these things?
it's as I started leveling up, right? So I never really dieted. Let's be completely honest, right?
Uh-huh.
My whole life, I never really dieted, right? Didn't really think about it, right? Didn't think about the nutritional side of it, right? I always thought, oh, if I just keep breaking, I'll lose weight. If I just keep doing this, I'll lose weight. Oh, if I just eat less, if I just don't eat today, then like I'll lose weight. And if I just keep it like that, I'll lose weight. And we don't understand how the body works. So you have to eat. You have to give your body nutrition. I didn't know none of that. And what actually helped me out a lot is I started working at in California. We have a 24-hour fitness. I started working at 24-hour fitness, and that's when I really started kind of like diving into like the fitness realm, right? Where I'm like, okay, like I was around a couple of bodybuilders. I was around like really fit people, right? And I was like, I was kind of chunky, and I was like, all right, like like I want to understand a little bit more. So I just started asking questions. I started asking the trainers, right? There's a guy that I used to be around all the time. His name was David Kumar, right? And like he was like bodybuilding and lifting. So I asked him, he in the beginning of the journey, he helped me out a lot too. And there was a guy that was in my dance crew, his name Will, right?
Hmm.
And he helped me out a lot too, in the beginning. So in the beginning, like I was like, okay, these guys are super fit. Like what do I need to know? Like let me ask these guys questions. And so the more I started asking questions, the more I myself started like diving into like certain diets. So I did the vegan diet, I did the pescatarian diet, I did the low
Ooh.
carb diet, I did the keto diet, I did the carnivore diet. So I went through all these like phases, right? The low carb diet and stuff like that. I went through all these phases, the intermittent fasting and all that stuff, right? I went through all this, and then like some of them worked really well. Some of them, like they worked, but it wasn't the results that I wanted. It wasn't the physique that I was trying to build. So I also tell everybody like the type of physique that you want to build is also the type of diet that you're gonna have to follow and go through with. Because it's like if I'm trying to do like a fighter's build, which is lean,
Yep.
like not too big, not so much muscle, but very lean and cut, right? I can't be eating like how a bodybuilder eats, because you guys have to take intake way more. You guys are lifting super heavy, right? And
Yep.
for me, it's like my body build that I'm looking to build isn't that. So I can't do your specific diet. I have to follow a different type of regimen. And even with keto, right, I found out with keto, I did keto. I lost a lot of weight doing keto. But then the minute I hopped off of keto, man, like I gained like 20, 30 pounds back within like the month, right? But it's because I didn't understand that, like, oh, it's like your body's in shock when you immediately just hop off the diet, go back in, and you're now eating regular. But then for like 6 months, you weren't doing none of this stuff. So it kind of shocks your body a little bit too. So I tell everybody, like, I did the vegetarian diet. I was a vegetarian for like, man, 8 months. I did vegan for like 2 months. I could not do vegan. It was just it's very difficult for me, right? But I also realized that one thing is like for me, I was like, okay, like I, I don't really have any like health problems,
Hmm.
right? And I know that these certain diets sometimes is really good for people who have health problems. Not saying that everybody who's on it does have health problems, but like everybody's body reacts to something differently. I found out like the low carb diet and like because I like at one point I didn't eat carbs at all because I was like, oh shoot, that's how I'm gaining weight, like oh like I shouldn't eat rice, I should cut all that stuff out, right? And then when I really started training super hard, I was always exhausted and my coach is like, "Are you eating rice? Are you eating carbs?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm just eating like chicken and spinach and broccoli, turkey and broccoli, they're like, so no carbs, no carbs at all." I was like, "No, no, you need carbs. It's like you're running constantly, you're doing sprints, you're running, you're doing cardio, you're dancing, that's cardio. When we're training and we're fighting, that's also cardio." I was like, and they're like, "You're working 10, 12-hour shifts. Like, you need the carbs, bro. Like you
Yeah.
have to eat the carbs." But I didn't know no better. I was like, no, like I heard carbs is, like it's bad for you. So let me try to do this and this. And like just learning to adjust the diet, learning what works for you. So now I'm doing like, with my fight trainings, I tell everybody like it's 5 small meals, a cup of rice, a cup of greens, and a chicken breast, or like a cup of ground turkey, like very, very lean dieting.
So why the smaller meals?
Um, Honestly, man, I don't know personally. Just for me, I find that it works for me.
Okay.
I cut weight easy. I'm not super hungry all the time. So usually like when I wake up, I'll do like if I can't go jogging, I'll do like 30 minutes of jump roping, right? And then I'll eat like 3 eggs with like two pieces of bread, and stuff like that. Like very small meals. In the morning, I don't technically for me, right? I don't like eating in the morning, but I know that I gotta kind of force myself to eat in the morning to get some of that energy, especially I work at 4 in the morning. So it's like I'm up super early. Most of the times when I'm done training, it's like 9:30. Sometimes I'm feeling up for it. I'll go cut weight for 30 minutes, get back. By the time I get back, it's like 10 o'clock.
Yep.
So just trying to carb up a little bit, get that extra energy into, I've been trying to lay off the caffeine. I'm a caffeine addict, man. So I drink coffee like there's no tomorrow. I'll drink coffee right now, still go to sleep,
Ooh.
so yeah,
Minnesota's
so
a
I'm
bad
trying to
spot to
lay off
be
the
with
coffee.
coffee. Hanging out with Chang too, you're gonna be drinking some good coffee.
Yeah, yeah, man. I'm like a big espresso guy, man. So like when I was living in Europe, I got super addicted to espresso. So like I'm just like, yeah, man, I need that strong stuff, man. And I'll drink like a lot of it, bro. And it's like I think I drank so much, but it's like it's normal now. So I'm like, all right, I gotta fall back on it. I gotta do natural energy a little bit too, gotta detox my body a little bit. And I tell everybody you do feel the difference too, man. Like when you're intaking caffeine like that and then you like detox it, you're gonna feel like crap, man. You're like, I was like, I remember when I first started doing detox, because I never knew about detoxing, right? So when I was working out a lot, I used to drink pre-workouts and stuff like that, right? I never knew about detoxing. So at one point I was like, man, like these like Celsius these C4s, they're not kicking no more. The pre-workout's not kicking. And then, my fitness buddies are like, dude, do you detox? I was like, what? And they're like, you're supposed to detox, right? Like after a while, like if you're doing it too much, you gotta detox, bro. I'm like, oh, but like I can't get a good pump in. I was like, they're like, yeah, but also if you're taking it all the time, your body becomes reliant on it,
Yep.
and then that's why I tell everybody, man, the fitness journey, bro, you learn so much. You learn a lot. Even to this day, I'm still learning. I tell everybody like I'm very intrigued by it. I love it a lot. And like to this day, I'm still learning, like, and I think being seriously into the fitness, it's only been about maybe like 5, 6 years for me. Cause I didn't really start getting serious until like my mid 20s. That's when I was really like, okay, I feel my health declining. I don't like how I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like like I tell everybody, like, man, I was getting tired from walking upstairs. Like 1, 2 flight of stairs. Like I was getting tired walking up those. I was feeling like low energy, and I was like, man, I can't even run down the street with my dogs without being winded, man. I was like, shoot, this isn't good. So that's when the change started happening, and I started trying to dive into it. And to this day, I'm still learning to. I don't know everything. I know what works for me a little bit here and there, but I'm always open. I just met with Charles actually yesterday, so based off the last podcast, right? I talked about a little bit about going pro for like Muay Thai.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I sat down with Charles yesterday and I told him, I was like, hey man, like, same thing I'm telling you, like, I don't know much. I know what I know and I only know what I've been taught. And shout outs to, my old conditioning and nutrition and fitness coach back in SAC, my coach Mike from Havoc. Like he worked with a lot of MMA fighters and he like helped me out a lot too in the beginning. That's how I really started cutting weight and understanding like, hey, like you can't do this. Hey, you got to do this. You got to eat like this. Hey, like make sure you're not eating after this time. Like okay, if you're working overnight, then we're gonna have to like offset your eating schedule because your eating schedule is very important too. So it was a lot of that. And when I sat down with Charles, I was like, like if we're gonna go pro, like I want a coach for strength and conditioning, and I was like, and I think you're one of the perfect people for me to work with, and especially if January of next year we're planning on making that move, like we have this whole year for you to kind of work with me and we could kind of see like, hey, like, all right, what works for you? What do you need to work on? What can we improve? All those type of things. And I told Charles, like, I want to look at it like this and like, I'm building a team. I'm building a team, like
Yes,
sometimes
sir.
I gotta focus on the fight and the training. So I need a coach to be there like, hey, all right, today we're gonna work this. This is what you gotta focus on. And it always feels good to have somebody there to push. It always feels good to have somebody there to be like, hey, I got you. Hey, this is what you need to work on. Hey, you're a little bit weak here. Let's work this a little bit today. Okay, if you're a little bit tired, we can flip it up and we can work this and we can do that. So, I told Charles in the long run too, like when I go pro, I want you to stay my strength and conditioning coach. I want you to have that. And also it helps you with your business and your clientele. And I was like, and what better way? I was like, I'm at Warman Muay Thai, like it's a big Hmong gym, like we reach out to the community, we do a lot of community work, right? And what better way to have the resources for the fitness industry, because as we get older, right? I told them a lot of us we grew up with our families not knowing so much about fitness and everything, right? So I was like, what better way to go than, because I told him the future plan I do want is like, I want you to be able to help us out. That way when you're at Warman or I'm at Warman, I can be like, yeah, well, like there's another Hmong brother that he does like this type of stuff, and I'm a little bit biased, man. I want my people to come up. So I tell everybody, it's no disrespect, but I love my people and I want people to know that hey, like we have people in these industries, because especially fitness is a new thing to our culture and to our people,
Yes,
especially
sir.
like,
You know
I
it.
tell everybody we don't know so much about it. So I told them growing up with like all this health stuff, right? I told them it's very important, man. That fitness industry stuff is very important. We gotta know, like your physical health benefits your mental wealth, and your mental wealth benefits your physical health too. It goes back and forth. It's a yin and yang thing, I believe.
Yep.
And I was like, the more you
Good
learn about your
times.
body, the more intelligent you become about how to take care of it.
Nope. Totally agree with that. All right. So, as I guess you said, like, in your mid 20s, you started digging a little bit more into health and fitness, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
noticed, you guys were discussing like how your b-boy name was Munch, right? Because you used to always munch
Yeah.
and eat all the time. When you
Yep.
were younger, you said that you were more of a heavy set guy too. Did that hurt
Mm-hmm.
you at all mentally? I guess having people maybe give you nicknames based off of like how your habits are, and or if you were a
Yeah.
heavy set guy, did that like hurt you in some way or like change you or make you think of dance and health a certain way,
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely affected a lot. When I first started learning, right, I was heavy, like I was heavy set. I was like probably like I think throughout my whole high school years, like freshman to senior year, I was probably like I was like most likely for sure my senior year, man, I was really heavy, right?
Yeah.
But like I've always was over like 220 pounds. I was always over 220 pounds. And I think like at one point I kind of got a little slim, but it wasn't never under 200 pounds. I was always a heavy set guy, right? And I tell everybody it doesn't, like that's why it's like the dieting, knowing the diet portion stuff, like it's so important, right? Because I just worked out. Working out isn't just going to cut it, right? You have to understand the dieting, right? And it played a lot on my mental too, right? Being a heavy set guy, right? I tell everybody, like, especially nowadays, that's why I advocate for like heavier people a lot, because I tell them it's like, I know how it feels. I understand. Like, I
Yes.
tell them, like, when I was younger, I didn't really think about it, but as I get older and I reflect back, I was like, yeah, I did make a lot of excuses for myself. because I was a heavy guy, and it played a big thing on my confidence, right? I told everybody, yeah, I would laugh and I'll shrug it off, right? But in the back of my mind is like, I told him, like, I didn't like this feeling, like, I didn't like how this played out, like, and it's like, I didn't have much confidence, I was always able to talk and goof around, right? Because naturally I'm a very social person, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
can always communicate all that stuff. But I told him it's like being a heavy sad guy, right? And not even just with breaking, right? But in general, right? In general, it played a big role on my confidence. It played a really big role on my mental health. At one point, I was very unconfident about everything I did. So I tell everybody, even with breaking, right? It was so hard to learn. It was very hard to learn because I was so heavy compared to my buddies who were like super skinny, fit, and
Yep.
stuff like that, right? It's hard, and then you see them doing all these flashy moves, and then you can't really do it because you're heavy, and it's really difficult. I wasn't able to do, like, I think for like the first couple of years, like I told him I was having a trouble doing like 20 push-ups. It was very difficult doing even 10 push-ups, like sit-ups were difficult, like squats were difficult. Working out, moving my body in general was difficult when it came to any athletic type of field, but I was always like super into sports, so when I was younger, my dad used to play soccer. So we played a little bit of soccer when I was younger, and then like at one point I got into flag football, so we were playing flag football. I was playing with Brotherhood from Sacramento, right? And
Dang.
then like, I played basketball all the time on the side, right? But I used to tell everybody, man, like I used to be so winded all the time, right? But you know, I I got pride, so I'm always like, I'm not gonna give up. I'm a push it. If I die on the court, I die on the court. That's the
Yes,
type of
sir.
personality I always had. And even with dancing, right? I was just like, I always had this drive, right? Like, even though I was heavy and I was very unconfident, I was like, all right, I can always find ways to get better. I can always find ways to move around it, right? Which is why I always preach to everybody, just because you're heavy doesn't mean you're not talented. You can't work this. So you can still work it, but it would be a lot easier, if you took care of your physical health and you became more physically fit and healthy. That would help a lot. And I tell everybody, don't knock it is, and it's like the thing that I believe in, this is my personal opinion, right? I think physical health, when I look at people, right, that's one of the big things I really look at, right? Because I think it shows the other person like how well this person takes care of themselves, right? And like, yes, of course, just because somebody's physically healthy doesn't mean they're healthy on the inside, right? Because if they're eating junk food and doing a bunch of bad stuff, you're still going to be shitty. But I tell them, like your physicality, right? That I've learned throughout the years of doing like physical training is like you can't lie, you cannot lie the results,
Yep.
and like, like you're in the scene where I was like, I tell them like, you can tell if somebody's cheating, you can tell somebody's using like supplements, certain supplements that like enhances their physical prowess or whatever, right? But I tell them like, but at the end of the day, your physical health, right, it shows a lot about your character to me, right? Personally, on how much you take care of yourself, how much you find your well-being important, and that's why one thing I started realizing, and that's why I really got into it because I was like, like it really made me realize, like, man, like I really do care about myself, and I was just like, I do care about myself. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to move around. Like right now, I ain't got no kids and stuff like that. But when I'm older, right, I tell everybody, like, when I'm older, I don't want to be that, like, that old guy where, like, oh, I can't go play with my grandkids because, like, like, oh, like, I can't really do this and this, And I'm fortunate enough to not have any situations where I'm not able to do that. I'm physically capable of preventing myself from having those type of injuries. So why not be smart about it now as I'm young and cultivate my body so that when I'm older, my body is still strong. I understand how to take care of myself, and then I can pass that knowledge on to like the youth, to somebody younger, where it's like, hey, like this is very important for you. This is I don't think people talk about it enough. It's very important for you. Your physical health is very important for you. You don't have to be this super buff guy, super ripped and whatever, right? But take care of yourself. Your physical health. Like, I've grown up with, a lot of family members. My grandma. They've had heart attacks before. It's like stuff like that. So like, I tell them it's like once you start realizing this type of stuff, man, the physical health plays a big part, especially when you were an overweight kid like how I was. For years, it plagued me. Like I just didn't
Yep.
say anything because like I told everybody like, wait, like when we grow up as boys, you learn to kind of like, hey, like don't be a punk, just deal with it and go. You don't really know how to express it.
Our generation was like that. I don't think the new
Yeah.
generation can like sit back and say, "Oh, life is tough, but I need to man up and move forward." And that's,
Hmm.
honestly something that, like you said, I feel like everybody struggles. But when you come to the realization that you don't like this feeling, you're like, all right, I have to change this somehow. And then you start doing hard stuff like dancing or lifting. And then you develop like this little armor, right? It's almost like a toughness, like a callus in your head that
Yeah.
allows you to push through hard times. And then now you are where you're at, right? To a degree. Um,
Yeah.
and I just, one thing that I do hope is, like, again, how do we make that ideology or that philosophy kind of like a virus to the new generation, which is why I think someone like
Yeah.
you is very important, because right now you are still figuring out who you are. You're still going through your journey. And even though you're already very successful, there's a lot of lessons that you're learning. Some of the life stuff that you've taken from back in the day too, I feel like can really benefit a lot of people, like my kids included. I got a young chubby son who's getting into b-boying, and when he first got started, that's what he was saying. He's like, man, I'm too big, I don't know if I can dance. And I started showing him some of the bigger b-boys, and now he's
Yeah.
in it. So that information, I think, is going to be nice, because I think for Hmong people, you always get picked on when I hear like heavy set. I always think you're probably the kid that got picked on a little bit in the family, because there's, every family there's like a fat kid. They call you fat. That's almost like your nickname. I have a brother that's nicknamed Fat. I have a couple of other friends that got like their brothers that they were considered fat. Like the term nickname. So I just didn't know if, at being a heavy set and kind of growing up, how that psychologically maybe either hurt you or fueled you kind of going into your b-boying and into your fitness
Mm.
journey. Did you feel like that kind of fueled you a little bit too once you started getting more into like your b-boying and your health and fitness journey?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I've had like moments where it's like I've been offered to do competitions against other heavy set guys, right? Like specific, just like, oh, we're gonna do exhibition. You're a big guy. You're gonna battle this big guy, right? And I remember when they told me that, right? I was so offended. Like, yeah, I was so offended, and I turned it down, right? And I told my mentor, like I was just like, I understand it's publicity. They're trying to promote like the big guys like into this type of stuff, right? But like the way that I think, man, I told him like I didn't like that, right? Because I was like, I'm a big dude. Okay, I understand that. It takes a lot more effort and a lot of work to do like this breaking stuff, right? But I never wanted to downplay my skill set. So I told him like, if I was a skinny dude and I was doing this kind of stuff, I'll be whack. I was like, but because I'm a big dude doing it, oh, you're so tight, and I was like, no, don't give me that limitation. Don't give that to me.
Yes,
I don't want
yes,
that limitation. And I think that's how my mentality always was, where I was like, all right, I'm big, watch this. Like, all right, I'm big, I'm gonna do this hard move. Okay, I'm big, I'm gonna do this. Okay, like, oh, he's big, he shouldn't be able to footwork that well. Well, I'm gonna show you that I can. I was like,
yes,
okay, well,
sir.
you're not gonna have this move, you're not gonna be able to do this because you're too big. All right, bet. All right, let me give me a couple months. I'm gonna come back. That's always been my mentality, right? So that's why I tell everybody, like it does affect you. Like I think for me, it did affect me a lot, but I also had that mentality where I was like, that's not gonna portray who I am, and I'm not gonna allow that to be a limitation. Because you know, if I really wanted to, I can fix the situation right now. It's going to take some time. I can fix the situation. I can get fit. I can do this, right? But I had to learn because in the beginning, right? I tell everybody in the beginning, my mindset wasn't how it was now. It was similar, but it wasn't as strong as it is now. When in the beginning, it was kind of, oh, well, I don't know. Oh, man, well, I'm sore today and I got to rest. Oh, man, my legs are hurting and stuff like that, right? But as I got older and I got more into the fitness journey, I understood that, like, hey, you got to push yourself a little bit more. You're sore, yes, but you're not to the point where you can't do it. You have to push your body to a limit because your body has to understand its limitations, and then you can exceed that limitation because you understand this is where my body peaks at. Okay, but I can get stronger. I tell everybody when I first started working out and I started jogging a lot, right? I told I would jog 10 minutes only. And it didn't matter how fast I went, it didn't matter how slow I went, as long as I did 10 minutes nonstop, whether I walked or not, 10 minutes every single day. Like that's how you would do it. And eventually went from 10 minutes of just like walking and running and light jogging to 10 minutes of, oh, I can jog this. Oh, okay, it may not be fast, but I can now jog 10 minutes nonstop. And eventually, after like the first month, I was like, oh, like 10 minutes, I'm running like now a mile and a half, I'm running in 10 minutes. Okay. And eventually it went from like, oh, like I'm running 10 minutes and I'm not tired. Oh, like maybe I should try to push it a little bit. Let's try to see how far I can go. So I tell everybody like it's a process, right? But that's the thing that fitness teaches you, right? It's like your results aren't going to be immediately. It's going to take months, and like especially you've been in the bodybuilding career, right? And all that stuff. It takes years. It doesn't take you're not going to 1 year you're not going to be a physical peak. It takes years
Yep.
of doing what you do to understand truly how your body really is. And I tell everybody like, that's the thing that I notice, like in school they don't teach you that. They
Nope.
don't teach you how to take care of your physical health, your mental health, and all that stuff. So I tell them it's our job to be like, hey, like this is what you need to do. You may not think it's important now because you never really thought about it, right? But as you get older, you're going to see how much it comes into play, and it's such a confidence booster, like I tell everybody, it's a little, like it might be over the top, but I always tell Lou and I tell Tom and Chang, all of them, I was like, y'all just wait till I have this six pack, bro. I'm never going to have my shirt on. I don't care
Yep.
what anybody says, and they're like, yeah, I was like, because it's not an ego thing. I work so freaking hard to get this. Like you don't understand like how much I put into this, and I'm allowed to show off if I feel like it. And some people may be like, "Oh, he's being ignorant or he's being arrogant," but it's like, no. If you understood the amount of time, the amount of work, the years put into this, from being a 270-pound guy, right now I weigh like 178 pounds,
Ooh,
and I'm
let's
still trying
go.
to go lower.
Congrats,
Like my next
congrats.
fight, my next fight, I'm going at 165. And if I go pro, I'm possibly thinking about going 155, 150,
No
And
way,
it's so
bro.
like,
You about to be at my weight? No way.
yeah. So I
Whew.
tell everybody, it's like, it's like to me, it's something to be proud of, and it may not be important to other people, but it doesn't matter if it's important to other people. It's important to me, and it's like I always tell everybody, like, I've come from this big overweight guy where it's like I was very unconfident. And it played a big role in everything, not even just like dancing. It played like if anybody were just to call me fat, right? It would be offensive to me, right? But I told
Ooh.
him it's like because I knew that myself, I just didn't want to admit it. And I think it's hard because sometimes you have people who really care but are like brutally honest, and you have people who care but they won't tell you the truth, so you don't know how to deal with it. Oh no,
Mm-hmm.
you're okay, you're okay. But then I've had guys who are like my first dance mentor, like Marcus Edgerlin, right? He was in the Jabberwockies too, and like he taught me when I first started dancing, and like he was so rough, like, and because we were like so similar and we were young too, right? But he would always be like, dude, you're fat. Like, dude, like, do you like being fat? Like he used to say this shit. And I used to be like, man, I don't care, I don't care. But deep in my head, it was always like, no, I don't like being overweight. I don't like being this. And a lot of people would be like, oh, well, he was like mentally abusing you, right? But I was like, yeah, but it was also because he really did care. Like he really did care. He was like, dude, like we do this, like you're always getting hurt. It's because you're overweight. We may not have been able to word it properly when we were like 16, 17, but it was like now I look back at it, I'm like, okay, like you weren't saying all that stuff to hurt my feelings and to discourage me. You were saying all those things to me because you actually really did, because he's really big into his physical health too, right? So he's always like, dude, like, no, like why? Like, why do you want to be like that? Why do you want to why do you want to be tired all the time? I was like, you want to get good? This is how you're supposed to get good. Like you can't expect to get good because you're lazy. And that really pushed my mentality with everything I do.
I feel like when you grow up and you have like these stigmas. Sometimes like people don't really understand how much it really hurts you. But the question that I often ask is this really how, if it's true and I don't like the words that I'm hearing, how do I then change those words into something that I do
Yeah.
like hearing? Because now, if you don't like people saying you're fat, even though they might be brutally honest, then change that. Make them say something
Yes.
else about you. And you can do that with your physical effort on, just like you said, how much you love yourself. A lot of this physical stuff is loving yourself. Who knew that if you just focus a little bit on, oh, if I want to tie my shoe, if I want to get up a little bit easier, or if I want to stop these people from saying these negative words about me, all I have to do is spend a little bit of time to love myself. It's almost like a
Yes.
reminder to remind you that if there's something lacking in your life, it's going to project. Other people are going to project too, because they either are been there, or they want to make sure that you know that you're fatter than them. Especially Hmong people. I want you to know that you're
Yeah.
fatter than me, so you better lose weight, right? All the way up until
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
100 pounds less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad
Yeah.
that
I
you didn't
mean,
let that take you down, because you wouldn't be where you're at now, if it wasn't for all of those people. And you can truly appreciate that. I tell people all the time too, you hate me now, but you love me later. Because as a true
yes.
friend, I'm not going to lie to you, and I want you to make sure that you know what you're getting into before we do anything. Because, like you said, when we get into the fitness industry, we have like this perception because we know nothing, especially in the Hmong community. This is very new for a lot of people too, and it's so information's coming all the time about nutrition, about training, and even dance too. Like even dance evolves,
Oh
man. You
yeah.
see these kids nowadays, you're like, what
Oh
are
my
y'all
gosh.
doing?
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
evolves, and I think it's a good thing to have all of those voices keep talking smack to you in your head. Like it's almost like a nightmare all the time until it's not. You know, and then you can just truly sit back and be like, man, I'm proud of myself. When you are
Yeah.
proud of yourself, to me, I think that is when you truly understand what health and fitness and maybe even dance means for you. It builds that confidence. Now it represents, like you said, in your physical ability. I know I try not to judge people physically because at the end of the day, not everybody is gonna love lifting
Mhm.
weights or getting jammed up like the way you and me do. Like if I got kneed in
Yeah.
the ribs or if I got slammed down by 700 pounds, there's a good chance I'm gonna come back in a couple of weeks and do it again. You know what I mean? I'm married to the sport. Everything that I
Yeah.
do, hip hop, lifting, and dancing, I marry it. So regardless of if I do well in a competition or not, doesn't change the fact that I'm still gonna grind. I still want to get better. I still want to do better because the people that actually need the information that we have, it's gonna be the next generation. How do they
Yeah.
overcome your struggle if they don't have the mental and the armor that you have? Part of that might be giving back, right? Show them.
Yep.
Look at me. I was 270 and now I'm 170. I can still dance. And now, even at the age that I'm at, this is what I'm doing now. And I almost don't even feel like I'm slowing down. What kind of message is
Yeah.
that, when you can do that? And then you're also one of us. Who knew? A Hmong guy called fat, got nicknames, maybe psychologically like mess with you a little bit on your confidence level. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden you meet the right people. It's kind of funny how that works, right? The world
Yeah.
or God or whatever it is that you believe in, it almost like conspires to make your dream of yourself come true if that's really what you want, you know?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I always tell everybody, when, like I tell them, when I'm at the gym, man, don't bother me. Like that, I'm not responding to nobody. I don't care who it is, right?
Yep.
But I also tell them, like, like the way that I look at it is too, when I'm working out, right? And I don't know if you feel the same way, right? But when I'm working out and I'm lifting and I'm like doing something that's very difficult, especially or when I'm running, right, or doing sprints and stuff like that, right? I always tell everybody, it's like the one thing that I always tell my back in the back of my head is I'm like, this is the weight of the world that you have to carry. You know, are you gonna give up? or are you gonna finish these damn reps and are you gonna like show them that you can carry the weight of the world on your shoulders? Doesn't matter how heavy it is, right? There's just a little game that I play with my head where I'm like, it's like, like this is the weight of the world. I gotta carry the weight of the world on my shoulder because nobody's gonna do it for me, you know, and like I want everybody to see how strong I truly am and that I will prevail, So like when I'm working out, I always have these little thoughts, in my head, especially even when I'm training and I'm fighting, right? Like especially like for example when we're at Warman, right? We do the teens class or like the kids they watch me train and the teens they watch me train, even adults when they watch me train, right? I always tell everybody, like, I always aim to set an example. Like, I always aim to be like, hey, man, like, look, I'm tired too. I've had a long day too, but I'm here, and I want you guys to see the drive, like, see the motivation, like I always say, I aim to be the motivator, and it's gonna be hard
Ooh.
and it's gonna be difficult. And the road that
Yes,
you
sir.
take, the path that you take, it might be new to you. It might be new to your family. And like you guys might not understand, but it's like keep going and keep pushing because this is how you excel and this is how you're gonna push past everything, right? And like once I was like you said, you start to as you start to build, right? You start to build this armor where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, like it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, right? I'll tell everybody, when everybody thinks about fighting, right? I'm like, yeah, I've been kicked in the face. It's not as bad as you think it is, but
Yeah.
everybody's perception, like, oh, but like you got it looked like you got kicked pretty hard. It's like I did get kicked pretty hard. It's not that bad. Like you build that endurance and that armor, and you learn how to deal with it. Like that's the biggest thing. You learn how to deal with it. I tell everybody, like, you ever been punched in the liver, kicked in the liver? Nah. Knee in the liver? Nah. It's not a great feeling. I told him like it sucks. Sometimes you can't even get up. I was like, but then as time progresses, right, and you get hit there again, you understand how to deal with the pain. You understand
Ooh,
how to
let's
get back
go.
up.
Uh-huh.
Like I tell them every time I get dropped, like in my head, it's like stand up. This isn't as bad as you think it is. Stand up. It may hurt, it may feel dim, you may feel like you don't have the strength to do it, but stand up. Like so I tell everybody, especially when I'm training, I have these thoughts in my head where I'm like, stand up, it's not that bad. Like you're tired, that's fine. It's okay if you're tired, but you're not gonna stop until you're done.
Yep.
Like don't stop. You can slow down. That's fine. Slow down, but don't stop. Get up, finish it, because you need to. This is the mentality you have to build because that's what you got to do when you're moving in life. Life doesn't stop for any of us. No matter what curveballs it throws at you, right? And this is, like not saying it's for everybody, but this is the discipline that I've learned through my physical journey, where it's like I have to push past it. I have to go. Like if I really want the results that I want, what am I willing to do? What am I willing to sacrifice? Like I tell everybody, no matter what you do, no matter what you do in life, right? I always ask these questions. I always ask, okay, you really want that? You really want this to happen? You really want to do this? Yeah. Okay. Are you willing to be broke? Are you willing to starve?
Yep.
Are you willing to suffer? Are you willing to be alone? Especially when you're driven and you're pursuing certain things, right? I told him it's gonna be a lonely damn road. And 95% of the times people aren't gonna understand why you do what you do, you know, but you have to push past it, because I told him, look, the darker the tunnel, the brighter the light at the end of the road,
Yep.
So that's all that really matters. You have to push that. And, like one thing that I've learned with the physical journey is creating that for me. And that's why I talk about I love it so much. Like I told I'll be bored and I'll just go to the gym to work out. I don't have to lift heavy, but like, oh, I'll do some resistant bands today. Oh, you know what? I'll go and I'll do some yoga. I'll stretch it out a little bit. Or I'll do a super light workout. It doesn't have to be super heavy, you know.
Yep.
Or some days I might be like, you know what, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna try to PR today. Like there's things like that too, So I tell everybody like you learn to love, I guess, the pain, especially when you're in it, right? And it might be a weird way of saying it, but I told him like even with fighting, man, like yeah, it hurts. Like shoot, my ankle's busted up right now. Like man, right now my shin is like busted,
Yeah.
but I still show up every day. I'm still kicking with the same shit. They're like, oh, you should probably rest. I'm like, it's not to the point where like it's broken. It's just it's sore or it's like I've got a bruise and it hurts when I kick. But like it shows me how strong my body is. I can deal with the pain. Of course, if it gets too bad and to a point where I can really be seriously injured, okay, then I'll relax a little bit. But you always have to be able to push past that a little bit. You have to understand what that feels like. And like no matter how much pain I've been through with the working out and the training and the dance and all that stuff, I told him it's never compared to the pain of when I was so unconfident with my own self, where I
Ooh,
was
let's
so
go.
like, oh man, like I'm overweight and like I don't think I look good and stuff like that. Like it played a big role on that. But as I started to grow, I started to realize, you know what, like, no, you know what, I got this. I got this. It's gonna take some time. And then, like I said, the best thing that like this fitness industry teaches you is that patience.
Hmm.
Patience, time, and the number one thing I tell everybody is dedication. Consistency. Number one thing that I think everybody in the physical fitness realm we speak about is consistency. Because you're not gonna be motivated. I tell them like there's plenty of days where I'm like, man, like my back is not feeling it. I'm so tired. Like my legs are so sore. Like, do I really want to go in and do this? And then the back of my head is always like, yes, consistency. Like if you're feeling this type of way, and maybe it's I don't know if it's the right way of seeing things, right? Like even in breaking, like there's one point where like I had like this really bad like I don't know what happened, but both my feet were like swollen up and like breaking apart. And it was like the bottom of my feet was just like callousing and bleeding. And like both my feet were like super swollen. So I was in a wheelchair for like 3 months, you know?
Ooh.
And then my two buddies, Tom and LX, like they would come practice at my house, because I had the garage floor, I had the good floor, and they'll practice, and I'll be in the wheelchair and I'll be like, man, I can't break because my feet are messed up. And I watched them break. And at one point I was like, man, screw this. I just like hopped off the wheelchair. I just crawled to the floor and I started doing like shoulder freezes, back spins, started doing head spins, right? And then like I always tell everybody, like no matter what injuries I have, right? No matter how hurt you are or anything like that, right? I always believe that there's something else that you can do, right? If my arm is messed up, okay, I can work my legs a little bit. If my legs are a little bit messed up, okay, I can do some back workouts. There's always okay, if I physically can't do anything, then I can research and I can learn how to take care of it a different way. Because maybe I tell them maybe you're getting hurt because you're not sleeping enough. Sleep is a very big thing in
Yes,
like to
sir.
recover. Like you have to sleep. Like a lot of people don't know. Oh, I'm running off like 3 4 hours of sleep. I'm like, yo, like I do that a lot too, and I know that that's not good. Like because your body can't recover. It can't keep up with you. Like or maybe like hey, you eat too much salt. Sodium is really bad for you if you eat an excessive amount of it. Like hey, like maybe like you're doing some like certain foods you're eating. Like, hey, don't eat fast food every day. Don't go out and eat every day. Like, hey, eat a salad here and there. Like, I promise you, like the result, there's a lot of things that dive into when I tell everybody when I talk about fitness too, it's not just like working out.
Yep.
It's like
Everything.
learning how to take care of your body. It's not just I tell everybody it's not just working out. So if you think like when we talk about physical fitness, right? I don't want to go to work out and this it's not about all that too. Because when you learn about this, you learn what helps your body. Because a lot of times, especially when we're training, right, we understand, like we were talking about earlier, like, yo, I gotta get some carbs, man, because I'm not eating
Yep.
enough carbs. So my body is starting to like feel drained all the time, like, or I might not be eating enough meat. I might not be eating enough protein, and especially like I tell everybody for like a tall, big, for a Hmong guy, I'm pretty big.
Yep.
Like
I would say so.
you know, yeah. So I told everybody like I can't eat the same way as other people eat because I'm training at a high, hardcore intensity level. So I'm burning a lot. So I told them like I'm pretty sure like throughout the day, like I have my Apple Watch that calculates everything I do. Right, it might not be correct, right? But when I'm running 3 miles, 3 4 miles, that's already 500 calories I'm burning about.
Yep.
When especially when I'm training hardcore and fight training, right? I'm burning at least like 800 calories. On top of that, I'm doing strength and conditioning. I'm burning probably like another 400 calories, right? And I was like, so I told him like I'm burning a lot of calories throughout the day, and if I don't know how to properly eat and make sure my nutrition is right, my body's gonna fail because it can't keep up. So I tell everybody, it's not also the physical aspect, but it's also the interior of it too. You learn how to take care of yourself, like food, certain foods you eat. Hey, shouldn't eat too much fatty foods. Hey, you shouldn't eat too much of this. So much sodium is not good for you. Hey, make sure you're drinking water, right? Drink a lot of water. Water is great for you. It's easy to sweat out, and your body is made of mostly water, so you need to
Yep.
be hydrated because if you're dehydrated, guess what? That plays a huge part on how you train. So I tell everybody, when they first start, I always go, like I don't hardcore blast people, but I'm like, hey, like let's work out a game plan, because especially, you being a bodybuilder, right? There's always a game plan on
Yep.
how you're training, right?
Yep.
Same thing with fighting. There's always a game plan on how we train. We do it smart. We don't do it dumb. Because if we're just going in there like, and we're not thinking, oh, I'm just gonna do this, you're gonna get hurt, and then you're gonna destroy yourself, and you might hurt yourself to the point where you can't do it anymore because you're not being careful about it. So it's learning all these things, right? And it's like I said, I've been in it for maybe 5, 6 years, and I'm still learning. There's still a lot of things where I'm like, oh man, I didn't even know that.
Yep.
And now the fitness industry is getting way more advanced, where it's like I told everybody like I used to never see no workout like all these like plyometric workouts, right? All these like certain weird workouts. I'm like, does that really help? Does that even really do anything, right? And I'll do these workouts. I'm like, damn, that was hella hard. Like I thought, like I told everybody, yoga's the number one thing. I used to think yoga, I was like, man, you're just stretching and you're just being in awkward positions. And I did yoga for the first time. I was like, yo, what is going on? You telling me I can't hold this position for more than 15 seconds? I was like, man, my balance is terrible. So I
Same
tell
for me.
everybody, like,
Same for
yeah,
me. Yeah, man, dude, I love that. Dude, I believe what you just said too. Sometimes you just got to get kneed in the liver to know what it takes to stand back up. And I feel like
yeah,
when we don't put ourselves in uncomfortable positions or when we stay too safe. Now, again, if you're the type of person that doesn't like the challenge, it's perfectly fine for you to not get
yeah,
kneed in the liver, right?
yeah,
But for
yeah,
some of us, when we go through these things, once you get hit and you're like out of breath, you're in pain. It's the same thing with lifting weights too. When you fail or when you're grinding and you get hurt, this shitty feeling that you're feeling right now is one step away from greatness. Because the moment you
yes,
feel this barrier or this wall, I'm not trying to be mean, but 99.9% of people, when they reach that wall, they don't want to continue to push forward because they already told themselves that once I got kicked in the liver, there's no way I'm standing back up. And I think
yeah,
it takes a very strong person to say, I'm going to stand back up and I might get kneed in the liver again. But unless you
yeah,
know what that feels like in training, you're not going to know how to do that during the match when taking that knee in the liver matters the most. And it's just like what you said about life. Life is like like a bunch of weights or chains, I feel, that either pulls you back or uplifts you.
mhm,
And when you get kneed in the liver or you're attacking this heavy weight, I often think too, this isn't even as hard as what I went through during this portion of my life. Uh, you
yes,
know, some
yeah,
people that I really, really love and appreciate are no longer in my life too. And then I often think a lot like the pain that I felt when this person left my life. There's no way this 700 pounds is
yes,
gonna keep me down like the way this thought is keeping me down. And then it's almost like
yeah,
once you overcome that, I don't know. It's almost like climbing those 10,000 steps on that little mountain in China, and most of the
yeah,
time they say you don't reach up there because once you reach up there, you're in heaven practically, right? That's what I feel like when you take that many beatings and you finally stand during the moment that it matters most, or you go through hell your entire life, and then the moment the life changing decision happens in your life, it's almost like you are thankful for all of the
yeah,
crap that came your way, you know? So just to kind of add a little bit about what you said about being able to take the pain, because people don't know. You're going to feel like shit when you're reaching greatness. Trust me.
yeah,
Nobody feels good when they're trying to be as good as you, as good as me, or like at like Bruce Lee, right? Every time he cracks his knuckles, people probably think that that's noises, but or it's fake. But if you're punching a 1,000 pound punching bag every single day for 6+ hours for the last 30 years, the bones in his knuckles are probably going to pop all the time because he's always using them. It's always getting hit. These bones are always
Yeah,
doing this over and over again. And unless you know what that pain
yeah,
feels like, you're not going to know how Bruce Lee got to the level that he got. It took a crazy person. I think you and me we would probably consider ourselves a little crazy. It takes a
oh
crazy
yeah.
person to take that step. Now, on top of all of the things that we talked about, the physical health and how it kind of helps you mentally. Another thing that I feel a lot of the youth, especially like in the Hmong community, is missing a little bit is
Mhm.
the spiritual health. Okay, now, I know not
Yeah.
everybody believes in the same thing, and I'm not telling everybody to believe in the same thing. But if I had to ask you, where are you at in terms of like your spiritual health or your spiritual journey? Explain that
Mhm.
a little bit from where you are right now and maybe kind of where you see yourself going, your spiritual journey.
Okay. Yeah. With the spiritual journey, man, like I think growing up, right? Growing up, my dad's shaman, right?
Okay?
So we grew up in the very traditional kind of shaman household, right? Where, whenever they call us to go out, we go out and do all that stuff, right? My mom's actually Christian, so my
Ooh,
mom's
hey,
side, yeah, they're like my grandpa, they respect the shaman side, but when they came to America, they converted, they're Christians, my grandparents from my mom's side, they went to church and they did all that stuff, right? So, like I tell everybody, like for me, when I was growing up, it was kind of the in between, right? I seen my mom's side where it's Christianity, and my grandpa, and my grandma really believed that, my mom's side. And then I seen my dad's side where it's like super shaman, like we're all into the spiritual stuff, right? And I think growing up in that environment, right? I tell everybody like it never really, for me personally, right? I've never felt connected to either or. I didn't feel connected to either or until I started getting older, right?
oh,
As I started getting older, right?
okay,
I
okay,
talk about
okay.
getting to your own culture a little bit more, because I told them
Yes,
even when I grew up,
sir.
right? Like I had like my home family, if I had home friends, right? But a lot of times the group that I hung out with weren't Hmong. That's just how it was, because these were guys who like I felt more connected to at the time, because we were dancing, we're into hip hop. Hip hop is very diverse. So you're in that, you know. And I tell everybody, as I got older, I started to, like care more about like the shaman culture and the Hmong culture, right? I've had personal experiences, so I tell everybody like I believe in it too, but it was weird, man, because when I started Muay Thai, I started now straying more into like the Buddhist path, where like I really personally in my life right now, I feel like the Buddhist path really clicks with me more. Spiritually, I think I've never really felt too in tune with like shamanism and Christianity, right?
Okay.
But when I started doing Muay Thai, right, my coach was very traditional, right? Before we fight, we would go to the temple and we get blessed. We have amulets and stuff like that, right? And I started diving a little bit more into the Buddhist culture. Started reading up a little bit about it. One of my really good instructors, his name's Aber, right? He's a pro Muay Thai fighter back in Sacramento, and he trained me too, right? And he was telling me like he was big into the Buddhism stuff, right? And he would explain about how it would talk a lot about like, it's like a neutral mindset. Like, one thing that they say is like, like when you tend to pull something towards you, like it tends to go further away. And if you try to push something
Mm,
further away, it tends to come more towards you. Whether if you let it naturally do what it's supposed to do, you got to leave it there. If it naturally gravitates toward you, then it's meant to be. If it doesn't gravitate toward you, then it's not meant to be, and that's okay also. And you look
ooh,
at
love
life a
that.
little bit more from a neutral standpoint, right? And I've always been kind of that guy. I felt like I've always been kind of like, no matter like the situations or what kind of I went through, it was always kind of like I've always tried to have like a neutral mindset of it, where it's like, okay, like I could get mad about it now, but all that's going to do is frustrate me. All that's going to do is mess up the progress that I'm trying to do, you know? And like it taught a lot about checking my own emotions too, where it's like, like now is not, like I may feel some type of way, but that's just in the moment, it's going to pass, So I think for me personally, I tell everybody, I think I just learned and I felt a lot more when my friends were teaching me more of the Buddhist path, right?
Hmm.
Compared to like when you're shaman, you don't really get to learn about it. It's just kind of like this is what your family does, so you do it, and that's kind of what I felt when I was younger, right? And even with the Christianity side, right? My mom, they never really forced it upon us, right? As we got a little bit older, they kind of like pushed it a little bit towards us, but it was never really like it just wasn't for me. Like for me, and I don't knock it or anything, but I think for me, it just wasn't something that like really clicked, you know. And I told him like I've dove into like cultures, right? I've read a little bit, I've read a little bit about like the Quran. I dug into that a little bit. Of course, like I have a Bible too with me. Like
Yep.
I have a Christian Bible too that sometimes I read the literature, right? Because I tell them like like I think culture, right? And this is what I've come to terms with. Is like the path and the culture that you believe in. It's true in the eyes of the beholder you know like it may not be true to me, but you believe in it with your whole heart, so it's true to you. And I tell everybody like I may not be super into the shaman path right now, right, but I believe it's real, because I've had experiences, I've seen things, like I've gone through like certain stuff, right? So I tell everybody like, well, I can't say it's not real because I personally experienced some spiritual stuff. I've personally felt this, right? But it's just I've never felt in tune with it, like how I do with Buddhism for right now, right? And not even saying I'm a Buddhist, right? I just feel more spiritually in tune with it, So like I tell everybody, like I'm still on that spiritual journey where I'm trying to find that. Of course, I believe in the shamanism stuff with my heart, and maybe I might lean a little bit more towards that as I get older, right? But I tell everybody, it's like, I'm still on that spiritual path where it's like, I'm still looking too, but right now that's what kind of clicks with me a little bit more, where I feel like it connects with me a lot more.
Okay. No, I dig that. Now, me personally, I was a. Now, my dad's a Christian and my mom was a shaman. I kind of
Okay.
grew up with my mom's side a little bit more. So I was shaman when I first grew up. And then because, eventually when, the wife marries into the husband, the philosophy or almost like everything that the husband does, the wife technically has to like adopt as well. So eventually my mom became a Christian and then we started going to church. For me,
Okay.
I have a similar belief as you as well. Like I have a lot of Muslim friends, and we talk a lot too. Where sometimes they'll be like, "You're actually more Muslim than you think," And this is what I've the conclusion that I've came with religion. If your spiritual belief is leading you to becoming a better person and it's positive in your life, then I don't think you need to change anything in terms of your beliefs. Okay, whether
Yeah.
you are a Christian, a Buddhist, or a shaman, or an atheist, I think if you are a better person and it benefits your life better, don't change. I kind of hate it that sometimes like Christians or even shamans, we tend to like bash on each other a little bit because of our
Yeah.
beliefs. But like you said, what if everything was true? I personally believe that shamanism is also Christianity. Is that a weird thought? When you
Mhm.
read in the Old Testament, in the Bible, right? They teach you how
Yeah.
to build a shaman shrine. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
All right. So
Oh.
in Christianity, right, in the Old Testament, the reason why they used to build a gold and silver shrine and then have like a little bowl there is because all men sin, right? In every religious belief, there's always going to be an internal struggle from the individual. And
Yes.
the old school Christians, what would happen is when we sin, like either all the ten commandments, if you overstep your bound, you have to sacrifice an animal, either calf or a goat or a dove, right? You slit the
Hmm.
throat, you drain all of the blood, and then you throw away the organs into like a little thing. And supposedly, God takes that innocent life, forgives you for your sin, and then that blood washes you anew. When you think of that from a Hmong shaman's perspective, you guys have a gold shrine. What do you think
Yeah.
like a dove is? Hmong people don't got doves in Asia. Maybe we got chickens. Hmong people don't have calves. Maybe we got our bulls or our cattle, you know? So we only kill what we did in order for the sin to go away. Because that's practically what shamanism does, right? You sacrifice
Yeah.
animals for either a celebration or some sort of curse or magic is coming upon you, and then you need to sacrifice things to either protect you or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Sounds kind of similar, right? What does the Buddhism
Yeah.
kind of tell you? It tells you almost the same thing as Christianity to a degree, where they teach you just how to be a good person. You almost let like life, or in my perspective, God kind of guide things your way. And if it's meant to be, it will come to you. If it's not meant to be, it won't be there until you need it. You know, because who knows? What if the thing that flies away is meant to come back into your life later and you just don't know it yet, you know? But I
Hmm.
do think that as long as you're searching for the truth, um, you're exactly where you need to be. I read the
Yeah.
Quran a little bit too. I've been getting into that, and I'm a Christian. You know, I also dig a lot into the shaman culture too, because, like you said, just because somebody does like a shaman ritual or whatever doesn't change the fact that I still believe in what I believe. You know what I mean? So, like, when you believe in shaman or Buddhist or whatever, it doesn't take away from me and it doesn't take away from our relationship, you know? So, I often just think as long as your spiritual journey is helping you positively, believe in whatever you want as long as it pushes
Yeah.
you forward. You know, like when you're struggling during those times, like let's say when people used to fat shame you or something like that, if you find strength by talking to God, that is where you're at. If you find strength in the community that monk shamanism brings, because honestly, I find more Christian values in my shaman friends than I do my Christian friends, you know? So I hang out with my
Mhm.
shaman
Yeah.
friends more. Who knew, huh? But I
Yeah.
I definitely just think, you know, you let these things come to you, and you know this. It's in your heart. When the right things come to you, you'll know what to believe. And at the end of the day, maybe you're not meant to be none of it. Maybe you're just meant to be this good person and you try to keep your mind open to the truth, whatever the truth is. Maybe you see it in different religions. Maybe you see it in your training. You know, b-boying and training teaches us a lot too. It teaches us about life. How do we find the wisdom and the values in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Buddhist teaching, in the shaman teaching, in the b-boy
Yeah.
teaching, in the fitness? It's all one gigantic circle, you know? That's why I love it when you said it's not just the physical, it's not just the mental, you know? Let's add the emotions and the spiritual and
Yeah.
the interpersonal relationships, you know, into it because that's what you are. Your body is
Yeah.
actually just a machine. You're trying to learn how to use your body. Imagine that. You know, you think
Yeah.
when we're born, our entire life is just spent understanding this. What
Yeah.
can we do to be stronger, faster, find food better? Maybe we got to learn math, build this muscle up here so we can build houses and schools for our kids, you know?
Yeah.
Morality, things like that, you know? It's all just one giant, this is who I am. And the more you love
Yeah.
this, the more other people are going to see. And I really hope that a lot of kids and a lot of the people that are getting into fitness and training too can kind of see the value in your mindset, some of the struggles that
Hmm.
you went through, some of your spiritual beliefs. Because again, we're all in our journey, you know? For all we know, we could all be wrong, you know? An atheist could be correct,
Yeah.
you know? Maybe when
Yeah.
we all pass, we all just go into darkness and then we'll all just laugh about how everybody was wrong, you know? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's like the big thing, like I told him, like, especially with dance, man, you meet so many people of different backgrounds. And that's the beauty of it. Like I always tell everybody, like when we go back to the dancing realm, right? I tell everybody like I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for dance. It's like it built my confidence. you know, it taught me how to communicate, like, and of course, when you're dancing and you're competing, oh, you're gonna go through some angry times too, whether when you lose, you get depressed, when you win, you feel, like excited, or like sometimes you're in a crew and man, like you lose friends, you lose crew members, people leave, like
The pendulum.
personalities clash. Yeah, like, I tell everybody like you learn how to deal with a lot of that stuff, and I had to deal with a lot of that stuff. And then you have personal beefs, like yeah, you deal with the anger, like when you're at a dance competition, you can't physically fight the person, so you're not allowed to do that. So you got to deal with it a certain type of way, and music and dance is its own language,
Yep.
like you can express so much emotion through that, so that's why I say, like you'll be surprised what you learn from whatever, like I tell everybody like man, like if it wasn't for dance I wouldn't know how to communicate, I wouldn't know how to, you know do business, I did business through
Wow.
dance, like I lived in another country for dancing, like I tell everybody like who would to think like, like
Yeah.
because I spin on my head, I spin on my back, and I do some six steps and I dance to music that I would go across the country and meet all these amazing and wonderful people that I've met in my life. And same thing with like even like combat sports, like I've met so much amazing people, like to this day, even like I tell them like, like I would have never met Ku if I didn't fight. I would have never met all these guys at Warman, all these kids and all these people that I come to love so much and care about. I would have never like known that type of community. Even back at home, the community of Muay Thai with my gym back at home in Sacramento,
Mhm.
like, and the people that I've met, some of us have parted ways, but I still got mad love for all these people, and I love to see their success. I love to see all that, and I've learned that like it helped me grow a lot mentally, you know. Mentally it helped me grow a lot, and that's why I tell everybody, like these type of things you would never expect what you get from it, like, and that's the beauty of it. Same thing with religion, right? It may not be your cup of tea. That's fine, but don't knock it. Like you don't understand like what why don't you try to see why this person loves it the way that they do? Because like I said, growing up as a shaman and half Christian, none of that really clicked to me,
Yep.
when I was younger, and look at me now, I'm 30 and I'm like, Buddhism's clicking a lot more, and it's like, and I don't know, like this is just recent. Like I've only been done Muay Thai for like 4 years now. So it's like, it's only been 4 years of like, damn, like I really feel into, and it's even like, it wasn't even 4 years because the first year, after the first year of training and going through all this, because my coach is very spiritual with like the Buddhism stuff, right? That's when, after the first year of being around him so much, that's when I'm like, man, I kind of like, I feel like this is clicking for me, you know? And it's like, I tell everybody, it's not even like I shunned the other two cultures. It's just like naturally it came as in like, I'm like, wow, I'm so intrigued with this culture, like, oh, I love the way that they taught it. I love it the way that they're going about it. And like it, I feel like it just matches me. I feel like it's connecting to me, and it's not even off of like any biased opinion. It was just kind of like, oh wow, okay. Well, let me dive into this a little bit more, because I don't know, it might be the culture for me. It might just be maybe I'm just intrigued with it at the moment, you know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
You
like we
don't.
said, you don't know. Like you don't know. So you gotta see, you gotta understand, and it's like you said, like, like you made a very good point. Like I know a lot of like shaman people with like good Christian morals, and I know a lot of good Christians with like better shaman morals than some of the shaman people,
Right.
And I tell everybody like it's crazy when you think about it. I know some Buddhist people who are way more spiritually in tune than some of the shaman people. So I tell everybody it's like
Yes.
you,
Right.
you see the difference, So I was like, there's not really like I've learned to like understand like like I said earlier, it's true in the eyes of the beholder. It's what you do with what's given to you, you know?
Yep. I love that. All right, one last thing I kind of just want to briefly talk about. Hopefully, again, I'm not taking too much of your time, because again,
Oh, you're
you and
good.
me, we
Yeah.
could probably talk for 10 hours.
Yeah. 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 We can talk for a long time.
All right, so I traveled to Hungary, to Prague, to
Okay.
Poland, to Sweden, to Dubai. I've traveled to a lot of different places, and I think when I traveled out there for my competitions internationally, I learned a lot about how people view poverty, struggles compared to us living in America, you know?
Yep.
And I think for me, when I competed against the world practically in lifting, I think it really opened up my mind a little bit on how I
Mhm.
view Hmong people in the Hmong community. And I just thought, as you were growing up and you were pretty young too, taking that
Mhm.
step and moving to Europe is pretty insane. I mean, just for me to travel out there for a competition, I thought was already insane. To live there is a whole different like realm.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know when you decided to do that, what kind of perspective did you learn from Europe that you now currently have where you are at now? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, so when I moved to Europe, right, it was quick. Like told my mom Monday, Saturday I was gone. I was like,
That's crazy,
well,
bro.
yeah, 1 week's notice. But I always wanted to do it, right? And I've always wanted to do it. I've At that point I already traveled a lot, right? So I've already been to Europe, I think one or two times before that, right? I traveled to Canada, Montreal, like 5 years in a row to compete, right? I traveled Seattle a lot. I went to Utah, right? All over the West Coast, and then like the Midwest here and there. And then I went to Guatemala, for like a week, and I tell everybody like when I moved to Europe, right? When I moved to Italy specifically, right? It wasn't like a third world country or anything like that, but it was such a culture shock, right? And when I was out there, right, I never really realized like how different it was compared to the US, right? How spoiled we are here. Like I tell everybody, like we're
Yep.
freaking spoiled, bro. Like people don't understand that. And it's like there's pros and cons to everything, right? There's pros and cons to everything. When I was in Italy, there's like pros and cons, right? You know, and I told him living there, right? One thing that I realized living there, like for a year, right? And being kind of like the only Asian dude around, right? Like, because I've never felt that before. I've never been just the only Asian guy, right? So everywhere I went, I was literally like the whole room, probably I'm the only Asian guy. It's like out of like 70 people, I'm the only Asian guy. It's weird, because if you've never experienced that, right? It's a very different thing. The culture shock too, it's different. The way they go about things, the way they see things. I tell everybody a lot of times, from my friends from out of the country, they view America as like, oh, you guys are lazy. You guys are overweight. You guys are lazy. You guys are unappreciative. And you guys are like, everything's a big deal to you guys. You guys get offended off words. Like my Hmong brother from France, right? That we recruited, right? Komeng, he was like, you guys really like argue over like this type of stuff. Like, yeah. I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, man. And he's like, from our country, like, people just tell you, like, like you're overweight. Like, there's no filter,
Yep.
So like I realize how spoiled we are here in the US, right? And like I tell everybody, man, no matter how bad it is, right? I love this country. I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that like I was able to have opportunity to be here because I don't know what would have happened if I was anywhere else, right? But I go to other places, and especially like when I went to places like Guatemala, right? I learned to appreciate more what I have here at home, And then when I hear stories like with my brother from France, he's like, when I come to the US, man, like he's like, you guys don't understand. Like, I didn't realize how much I missed out on the Hmong culture.
Mm.
I'm like, damn, and then when I was in that time for Italy, right? I told everybody, man, like, yeah, I missed Hmong New Year. Like I missed like seeing like my people around all the time. I miss like the diversity, and I was just like, wow, like this is wild because I wouldn't think that like I'm not saying that I didn't love it. I loved every minute, every moment I was out there. I loved it, But it's like doubling back to what I said earlier in the podcast, where it's like, you know, as I get older, your people, your culture, and stuff like that. You start to look back at it, and then like it's your self identity. Like I always tell everybody, like at the end of the day, like everywhere I go, nobody really thinks I'm Hmong, right?
Yep.
It's like I just don't look like a Hmong guy, I guess. But I always say probably, no, I'm Hmong. Or I'll joke around, oh no, I'm not Hmong. And then no, I'm just messing with you. I'm Hmong, dude. I love being
Yeah.
Hmong, 100% dog. I always joke about it, but I tell them like truly deeply in my heart, like it really showed me like how much like I really do love my culture. I really do love the people, because living in another country where damn like didn't see no Hmong people, didn't see like in general just Asians, right? But it's like to me, it was like a very big thing where I'm like, it really made me realize like, man, like I really, really didn't appreciate everything that I had, being out here, being by myself. I don't speak the language. And it kind of like when I was out there, right? I'm in Italy. I don't speak Italian. So it really made me feel like I kind of slightly understood what my parents and their parents went through, where it's like, oh shit, like I can't even read the signs. Like the way we would talk, it was just hand communication, like that's that's how I literally communicate. Of course, you learn a little bit, right? But it made me realize how our parents went through what they went through when they came here. Because I was out there by myself. Yeah, I was living with my friend, but I would go to the store by myself. Sometimes my friend wouldn't be there all the time. So it was like I told everybody like it made me really realize like holy crap, this is what my parents they went through. A whole nother country, don't speak the language, don't know your way around, can't read the signs. And I was like, wow, man, like I really didn't appreciate like that so much, you know. And then when I came back home, I told everybody like, man, like, oh, the roads are so different, like the city's different, the air is different, like the environment's different, you learn to miss it, you know. So that's just pretty much how I felt going out there, and that's what I learned a lot about myself and just being out there by myself, you know.
Nice. No, I appreciate that. I very much like you too. I mean, I personally, um, I have like some issues with people that practice the Hmong culture. But in general, I love the Hmong culture too, and I think you don't truly appreciate it until you go out and you see these things, or like during the COVID age where everybody assumed that you were Chinese. It kind of reminded me about the same
Hmm.
times back in World War II, where even when if you were Asian, they automatically assume you were Japanese, and then boom, they put you in the concentration camps too. And even though
Yeah.
I struggle with my identity as an American or as a Hmong, I truly come to learn that the American part is actually the adjective. Everybody always say Hmong American, but I say American Hmong because I want to emphasize who I am as a Hmong person, and the
Mm.
adjective is America. The world loves
Yeah.
to remind us who we are when things are inconvenient for them. So we also
Yeah.
have to be prideful in who we are and not forget the struggle that people went through, no matter what. And you honestly don't really appreciate it until you don't see it or you don't have it.
Yeah.
So love that
No, yeah.
perspective. All right.
Yeah, I told everybody the thing I missed the most was home food, man. I was out there, I was like, damn, like
Yep.
like damn, I miss my culture food like crazy.
Yeah, there's like Ye Vang says, there's like a special part about it. There's always going to be a rice. That there's always going to be some sort of protein, and then that there's going to be pepper on the side. Not too many cultures kind of like portion their meals like that, and I find that kind of unique that Hmong people kind of do that. You know.
Yeah.
All right, so that was really great. I appreciate all of the knowledge and wisdom that you kind of put upon us. If you could give us one last bit of advice, if you had children, what kind of values would you want them to have based off of what you know now?
Yeah. Um, man. I tell everybody that's one of my biggest fears.
Hey,
Is-
yes,
yeah, you know.
that's the
So
next step in
that's
life, though.
yeah, it is his next step in life, and it's a step that I think myself I'm working towards. But I do tell everybody that is one of my biggest fears, right? Because I think in this world, no matter how great of a parent you are, no matter how secure you are, you don't know how your kids are going to turn out. Any values that I can instill is be proud of yourself, be proud of who you are, love who you are. You know, not everybody's there to be your friend. And the best way I can put it is keep an open mind and keep moving. Things aren't going to go your way all the time. Majority of the time, it's not going
Yeah,
to go your way,
majority.
right? You are the cultivator of what you do. You cultivate what you want, right? And I think one of the biggest values for me is like love yourself no matter what. Love yourself no matter what you go through. Times are going to get hard. I think everybody goes through this phase of, like I said in the no eggs, right? Like I think everybody goes through this phase of depression. And I don't think that's something that just goes away within your lifetime. You constantly fight a battle with it, right? You're constantly going to fight a battle with it because it's not going to stop. And understand that even in those deepest, darkest times, you have to love yourself. You may not be happy with yourself, but love yourself at all times. And it might be hard in the moment. You might not like the image you see. You might not like what you're around, but that's always changeable. It's always adjustable because you can cultivate your image. You can cultivate what you want to build. So the number one value I would say that I would want my kids to have, is to love yourself. It's very, very basic, but also one of the hardest things in the world to do, you know.
Yep.
And I think that's something that a lot of people like come to understand as you get older. It's hard to love yourself. It's very easy to say, "Oh, love yourself." Oh, I do love myself, but I always tell everybody like, "Do you really though?" So very simple, but one of the hardest things in the world to do is love yourself at all times, whether you like the image that you see in the mirror or not. You know,
Love that. Yeah, I definitely think that's a good message. Um, you know, I hope that when the youth who grow up, and even us, like even me, growing up into the next phases of our life, that we can continue to keep some of those values in as well, because who doesn't hate them when they do bad or when life is hard. So really
yeah.
appreciate that.